Hey, what's up, chat? Welcome to Unit 6, Day 1. In this unit, we are going to be solving inequalities. And to get started, I've always gotten the question, Mr. Redmond, when are we going to use this in real life? Well, let's start with an example right now. Imagine you have your cell phone and you have 3 gigs of free storage left, right? And imagine each app that you download requires 0.4 gigs. Well, my question to you is, how many apps would you be able to download? Well, if you wanted to know the answer to that, well, using an inequality would be a perfect idea, because you could set up this inequality, and once you solve it, you would be able to determine exactly how many apps you would then be able to download. Okay, and so that is a perfect use for inequalities. So let's jump into the lesson for today. In this lesson, by the end of it, we are going to be able to solve inequalities and to display them on a number line. Okay, and so when I say inequalities, there are 4 inequality symbols that hopefully you are familiar with. Okay, but I'm just gonna walk through how to read them, right? This is just a refresher, right? This says -10 is less than -9. Well, you might be thinking, well, -10, isn't that bigger than -9? Well, you got to remember, when you are dealing with negatives, the bigger the negative number is, the smaller the number. In other words, if I'm looking at my number line, the more negative, the further away I am from 0, the smaller my numbers are getting. So as I'm moving to the left, I'm getting smaller. As I'm moving to the right, I am getting larger. Okay, and so these are just, I'm not going to read all of these, but it shows you the inequality symbol and how to read it. Okay, and so when we are showing or graphing inequalities, we use open dots and we use closed dots and arrows on a number line to show what values make the statement true. Okay, and so if I wanted to know, right, what numbers would make this statement true, where x is greater than 6, okay, I can show that on a number line, right? I know 7 is greater than 6, and 8 is greater than 6, and 10 is greater than 6, and 200 is greater than 6. So graphing it on a number line shows what the answers are, okay? And so again, just by way of review, here's our inequality symbols. Our less than makes an L. Our greater than is a backwards L, okay? When I learned this, my teacher said if you draw like a little hook, that looks like a G. Obviously, that looks like an L, so that's less than. I'm sorry, did not read that. That's less than or equal to. Just kidding, making sure you're on your toes. The greater than is here. Put the G there. That is greater than, and then greater than or equal to, okay? All right, so really quickly, okay, again, this is just by way of review. I want you to read this. This says n is greater than or equal to. If you don't remember the symbols, just look up here, right? Greater than or equal to 2. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to 2 and I'm going to make an open circle. And then I have to determine if that circle is open or closed. Well, if it is equal to, that means that if there's a line underneath it, that means then that it could also be that value. So it can be 2. So I'm going to close my circle. And then greater than. Which numbers is greater than? The ones to the left or the ones to the right? Well, clearly it's the ones to the right. So we are going to put an arrow shaded, okay, to the right. One tip is, as long as the variable is in the front, when the letter is in the front, the inequality symbol shows you which direction to shade. Okay, so this is how I graph that inequality. Well, what are some possible answers to that inequality? Well, is everything that is shaded. So 2 could be, okay, n could be 2, and that would be true. N also could be 4, right? And 4 would be greater than 2. It also could be also could be 100. See, again, the shaded arrow means it goes on forever. Everything to the right. Okay? All right, let's look at the next one. This says x is less than 3. Okay? So I'm going to go to 3. I'm going to put an open circle. Okay? And do I need to keep it open or closed? Well, because it says s is less than 3, that means s can't be 3, right? Because it's not equal to, so I'm going to leave it open. And then I'm going to shade which numbers would be less than 3. Okay, well, it's going to be to the left. All right, and again, remember, as long as the x is, or the variable is in front, then the inequality symbol shows you where to shade. Okay, so some possible solutions could be, well, again, they are shaded. 2 is a possible solution. 0 is a possible solution. And then all of the numbers that are this way. So any negatives. So we'll just say -5 would also. Again, these are all answers that would make that inequality true. All right. And then for the next two, I want you to notice that in the next two, the variable is on the other side. Okay. So what I would encourage you to do in this instance is I want you to flip it so that it's just easier to read that way, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say W. I'm going to keep it facing the same way, but I got to flip it -3. Okay. And then the same thing over here. I want the variable to be in the front, so I'm going to flip the sign, and that is just going to make it really easier to read when I do that, okay? So this says W is less than -3. Or I could have said -3 is greater than W, but that, again, can be hard to understand, all right? So let's go to -3. I'm going to go to -3. I'm going to put a circle. Is it going to be open or closed? I don't know. You tell me. Put it in the comments. And then where am I going to shade? Well, I'm going to shade to the left because the inequality symbol is facing that way. And what numbers would make this true, meaning it is less than? Remember, when I'm working with negatives can be a little tricky, but the bigger the negative number, the smaller the number is. So the possible solutions could be -4, it could be -6, and then it could be any number, you know, let's say -10, and so on, okay? I should have put, again, these are, I could pick so many more numbers, right? I just picked 3, but I could go on and on with picking numbers, right? And then lastly, let's go here. This one has a decimal, so it's 2.5. So 2.5 would be right here, okay, in between 2 and 3. And then is it going to be an open circle or a closed circle? It's going to be closed because this is equal to, all right? So it's a closed circle. And then where am I shading? Well, this is less than, so I'm shading to the left. Okay. And I am shading in that direction. All right. Hey, I didn't say this, but hey, if I were you, maybe I'll pause it and maybe you take a color pencil or a highlighter and just highlight where we shade it. It just will help it stand out for your notes. Want to make sure you get that. So some possible solutions would be -2. We got 0. We also got, let's throw a decimal in there, -1.5. All right, so on and so forth, right? Okay, so I know that was a long review. I wanted to make sure that we were clear on how to set these up. Hey, based on that, now we're going from the inequality to the graph. Now we're going from the graph to the inequality. All right. So you can use whatever variable you want here. Okay. So for this one, I'm just gonna use x. That's my favorite one to use. And then I'm gonna look at that number. Well, that number is 7. Okay. So now I got to figure out what inequality symbol. Well, this says 7, and it's all the numbers that are less than 7. So I got to use the less than inequality symbol, but because it's shaded, it's also going to be equal to. Okay. So again, if you remember what I said is when you put the variable in the front, the arrow points to where the inequality symbol must be facing. All right, so I know, again, in this case, I know the inequality symbol is going to be facing that way. And this one, I also know the inequality symbol is going to be facing that way, right? Because it's shaded, the arrow's that way, all right? And I'll use X. And then is this going to be open and closed at -8? It's going to be open, right? Or sorry, it is open, so it's not going to be equal to. And then this one is shaded at -2. So it is going to be closed, or equal to rather. All right. Now, that was a lot, all right, and I could end the lesson right there, but we got to keep moving since we are a little behind. So now we're just going to talk how to solve multi-step inequalities, all right? And this is just like solving equations, but there is one really important thing to remember. I call this the golden rule of inequalities. Whatever you do to one side, you must do to the other, just like equations. But if you multiply or divide by a negative number, you must flip the sign. Okay, you must flip the inequality sign when you do that. All right, so that's the golden rule. We're going to come back to that in just a few moments, but let's look at solving a multi-step inequality. All right, and so I want to get this x by itself. And so I'm going to do so by doing the inverse operation. That is going to be, okay, I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. The 5s are going to cancel, leaving me with 4x is less than or equal to 13 minus 5, which is 8. Okay, then I'm going to divide by 4 to get rid of the 4s. Now I have x is less than or equal to 8 divided by 4, which is 2. And so now, right, based on what we were just looking at how to solve, we should solve this, all right? Or sorry, we just graph this. So x is less than or equal to 2, so we go to 2, we put a circle. And then, is it open or closed? Well, it is, because this is equal to, it is a closed circle. And then, which direction am I going to shade? Well, it is less than or equal to, again, facing that way, so I'm going to shade and put my arrow, again, arrow indicating that it's all those numbers in that direction, all right? And so there you have it. That is simply how you solve multi-step inequalities, all right? I'm gonna go ahead and do the next one, and then I'm gonna let you do the next two on your own, okay? So this time we got a couple negatives in here, let's see. So I'm gonna get rid of the -4, the negative, I'm gonna get the x by itself, get rid of the -4, so I'm gonna add 4 to both sides, okay? And then when I add 4 to both sides, that's gonna cancel, and I got -2x is less than 8 plus 4 is 12, okay? And so now, look, this is what you have to remember. This is -2 times x, right? Whenever you have just a number, the coefficient, that is multiplying, right? So that's not a -2, that's a -2 times x. So the inverse of -2 is, the inverse of multiplying by -2 is to divide by a -2. And whatever you do to one side, I have to do to the other side. And bing, 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 I am dividing by a -2, so I have to remember that golden rule, which is whenever you multiply or divide by a negative number, you must flip the sign. So I had to flip my sign from being less than now to greater than. So 12 divided by -2 is going to give me a -6, okay? And that is my answer. So to figure out what my solutions, what my answers would be, I'm going to go to -6. I'm going to put an open circle, okay? And I'm going to leave it open. Why? Because it's not equal to. It is just greater than -6. And then I'm going to shade so I can see what my solutions, what my answers could be. And because I am greater, am I going to shine to the left or to the right? Well, again, inequality symbol is facing in the direction that I need to shade. All of these numbers to the right are greater. So those are what I need to shade. All right. That's it. Okay, so friends, what I need you to do is I've given you 2 examples. Okay, I want you to pause this video, and I want you to do 3 and number 4 on your own. And then once you are done, I want you to talk with your table partner if you have one, and compare your answers and see what you got. And then I'll go back and give you the answers at the end. All right, hey, this video is getting long, so I gotta fly through this. -5 on both sides, 3x greater than -9, divide by 3, divide by 3, x is greater than -3. So I go to -3, I put an open circle, and then I am shading to the right because it is greater than. Put my arrow. All right, and then lastly, subtract 10, -2x is greater than 10, divide by -2, divide by a -2. I'm dividing by -2 again, so I gotta flip that sign so the symbol becomes less than now, and that would be -5. Okay, so 10 is less than -5. Well, -5 is gonna be in between -4 and -6, and I'm gonna shade it close, and then I'm shading that way because it is less than, and the numbers to the left are less than, numbers to the right are greater. All right, and then lastly, hey, in this one, you got to do the distributive property. 3 times 3 is going to give me 9, plus 3 times x is going to give me 3x. Okay, and then you just finish solving that. And then the same thing for the next one. Make sure you distribute it. Hey, but this video's been long enough, so I'm gonna end it there. Make sure you finish these last two on your own. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions, make sure you ask. Looking forward to finishing the rest of Unit 6 with Day 2.